So I've already got a document just here set up, ready to go. If I just go to the pixels, because I think this one is 1080. It is 1080. There we go. So I just use the artboard tool there, Shift O to get to that, of course. And yes, so that's the document size I'm starting for this one. Now I've chosen to do something based loosely, well, actually maybe not so loosely, on Lato. So I'm going to choose Lato Herlan just for the moment. However, it isn't going to actually be Lato. I'm just going to make this a bit larger. Okay, and then I'm going to type 23 in there. That's all I actually need for this particular one, just the 23. Everything else will come later on. So I'm just going to move this into place about there. We'll do just for the purposes of this. Then I'm going to get my rulers up, so Command R, Control R on Windows for that, and then bring in some guides for what I want just here. So I'm just bringing these down from the top, meeting these edges here, and just having a quick look roughly at that. I think I might want to make that slightly higher up for this one, because I'm only using this as a guide. What I'm going to do now then is I'm going to drop the opacity of that right the way down, and then I'm going to lock it from there. So there we are, Command 2, Control 2 to lock that. And I've got some idea of the proportions I want from that. However, my design is going to be slightly more rounded than this is at the moment. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead then and tap L to get my ellipse tool. And I'm just going to draw out an ellipse, something like maybe just a shade larger than that. Let's just swap the fill and stroke there, Shift X to do that. And then just bring this up and change the weight of this. So it's more approximating the weight of the actual characters there. Now, because it's got a curve on the top of it, I need to kind of exceed that ruled line just there. I think that's not too bad, you know, maybe just a bit bigger, I think, something like that. Okay, and I'll keep that to 2 points. That's fine where it is. I'm going to hit backslash to get the line tool and draw out a line like so. The lines here, or the guides behind, just helping me out a little bit with those proportions. Okay, and then I'm just going to use the down arrow to bring that line down a little bit. In fact, I'm going to zoom right in and then just bring that down like so, something like that. It doesn't have to be exact for this. It's not like I'm actually creating new letter forms here, but anyway. So one more at this angle just here. I think I'll start from, if I just deselect that and start from this point here and make my way up to about there. Actually, do you know what? I'm going to go right in and try and go for the tangency. It's not going to work. So I'm going to stop at about that point there. Now I need to make some cuts. So I'm going to hit the scissors tool, C, for that, and I'm going to come along and make some cuts here. I want to go sort of about halfway, so I'm purposely going to use that anchor point. This one here, I think I'm also going to cut at that anchor point. I'm just going to delete the parts I don't want there. Now I've got a few things I can do here. I could switch to the curvature pen tool. So if I pick up this path here and command command apostrophe backtick, hello, to get that, or tilde if you've got that on your keyboard, and then I could plot some points going down to that line there like so. Now you see, but I've got to do some stuff to rectify that, so I'm going to undo that. On this particular occasion, I'm actually going to use one of my plugins. I'm going to use the connect tool from Astute Graphics just to join those two things together. You can see that's so much easier to do that. I'm just going to join these as well, Command J. There we go. That looks pretty good, I think. That's a fairly respectable 2 there. Now I want to do a 3 just here. So again, I'm going to go for the ellipse tool, and I'm going to kind of go for the middle, I think. Well, actually, I could just work from side to side here like so and get that to exceed that bottom line, bring that out. Now the only thing I don't want here, I'm just going to bring that into place just so I've got an idea of the proportions of that. So what I want to do now is I am going to grab hold of this 2, hold down the Alt or Option key just there to drag a copy. I'm then going to cut that, so I've got my scissors C because scissors cut, and then I'm going to get rid of the stuff I don't want, which is that bit there. Then I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to just reset the bounding box for that, which you do by transform, reset bounding box, and you can see it brings it back into being a rectangle. I'm going to mirror that over, or flip it over that way, and also flip it across vertically, and then bring that in like so, something like that. It's pretty good, but I don't want it to be exactly square. I want it to kind of line up with that and balance those two things out. And that's going to be the tricky part to get there. So I'm just kind of eyeballing that and trying to imagine what this might be like here. So I think I'm going to actually extend that up like so. Just going to bring that down to 2 points. This one I think is still at 2 points. Right, I'm going to get my scissors again. So this is very, very scissor centric at this particular bit here. And I'm going to make some cuts. Now I'm going to use that piece just there. So I'm using the guide that I've got underneath just there. And then I'm going to come up and I'm going to cut that just there as well. Switch to the selection tool, get the bit I don't want. And then this bit here, I think I'm also going to cut that in the same place. So I'm aiming for that point there. That's it. Cut. Pick up this bit. I think there might be a little bit of overlap just there. There is, and I don't actually want that overlap. So I need to do a further cut on the path beneath. So let me just deselect the bit I don't want. And actually sometimes it's a good idea to go into outline mode, which is what I've done just now. So that's Command Y or Control Y. You can tell I've not been doing much speaking for a little while. And then just go ahead and cut that. That's good. Perfect. There's ordinarily, by the way, let me just go back into regular mode here, or preview mode. There is another way for me to do that. I would normally use a plugin and extend that path backwards and forwards. So I'm going to select both of those points using the direct selection tool. Option Command J for the average command. I'm going to hit OK, so it will average them in the same location. And then Command J to join them. Fantastic. So now I've got characters that I'm happy with. I wanted this style of the number 3 with the angle at the top and not the rounded bit. Okay, so those things joined together, I'm just trying to get a decent look at those. I'm going to get rid of the thing behind, so Option Command 2 now to unlock that, and then I'm going to delete that guide. I'm also going to get rid of my ruler guides, so I'm going to come down to guides and clear guides so I can take a look at that. I think that's pretty good actually. I don't know whether that angle, I want the angles to match, but I don't know whether it's a bit much just there. However, I'm going to go with it anyway. There we are. So in fact, that bit at the top, I could pretty much get rid of that, because what I want to do is to bring those two things together like so. Yeah, that's going to work. I'm just going to double click on this one to go into isolation mode. There we go. I don't need that point just on the end there. That's working pretty well. And now if I just double click to go back into that, I'm going to join those two together. They should be in exactly the same place, but just habit tells me to go ahead and join those two things like that. So there we go. Nice. Now I've got something there that I think will work pretty well. Let me just show you the weight thing there. So if I needed to change the weight, you can see how quickly I can do just that. There we go. Right, so I've got this perfect. Now at this point, I actually am going to outline that. What I'm just going to do first is I'm just going to take a look at the terminals here because I want them to be square. The joins are fine as they are, but I want these where the angles are there. But here I definitely want them to be square for this particular design. So now I'm going to outline those paths. I have a shortcut for it that I've assigned myself, but here I'm just going to go ahead and use it from the menu system, just in case you haven't assigned one for yourself. Just give me 1 second. Okay, now I've got that. I'm just going to take that out to the side just there. So I've got a safety copy. I'm then going to copy that. Now to do this the way I want to do it. So someone's going to ask me a question in a bit about using the effects to extrude this. When you see what I'm doing, it's not going to work for me that particular way this time. Okay, so what I want to do now is I'm going to bring in the perspective grid, and the way to do that, in fact quite a lot of people do this by accident, is Shift Command I. That would be Shift Control I on Windows. Okay, and you get this that appears on your screen. I've known people that have actually quit Illustrator because they can't get rid of this thing. But Shift Command I is a toggle, or Shift Control I is a toggle, which will turn it on and off. So and if you can't remember the shortcut or don't want to remember the shortcut, then all you need to do is go to the View menu, Perspective Grid, and then you can turn the grid off from there as well. So you can just do Hide Grid. You can see it just there. It will toggle between Show and Hide. Now I think I might just change the angle of this plane. The plane on the right hand side is the one I'm going to use. So I'm going to go Shift P for the Perspective Grid tool. It is right. Let's just bring that out like so. I think that's pretty much the way I want that. I'm not worried about the other plane too much at all, really. I mean, I could mess around with that as well, but I'm not desperately worried about that too much. So there we go. I'm kind of visualizing a box, and I'm just using the 2-point perspective. Does the escape key work as well? Oh yeah, it does. There you go. Didn't know that. It's because I know the toggle. Or even if I did know it at some point, I've forgotten it because the toggle was just automatic for me. Okay, then I need to go ahead and get the perspective selection tool. The regular selection tool won't work for this. Okay, so this perspective selection tool is Shift V. All of those tools live here, the little, or both of those tools, the little perspective tool set just there, perspective grid and perspective selection tool. I'm then going to go ahead, okay, I'm just zooming in a little bit, and paste this on. Now look at the widget in the top here. You can see that the blue side is the active plane. But you can change that with the keyboard. I actually want it to go onto the plane on the right hand side. I'm just going to paste, so Command V, same as you would ordinarily. Now at the moment it's not attached to the grid. As soon as I drag it, right, it's going to attach to a plane. Now can you see how it's attached to the blue plane? But I'm just going to tap 3 on my keyboard, and suddenly it attaches to the plane on the right. That's because you can use the number keys 1, 2 and 3 to cycle through those planes. Yeah, so you can, if you wanted to put it on the ground, you could do 2 and suddenly it snapped to the ground. 1 for the blue plane, 3 for the orange plane, or the right hand plane would be a more accurate way to describe it. I think that's pretty good where it is just there. Excellent. I'm just zooming in on that again a bit more, mainly for your viewing comfort, but also a little bit for my own on this particular occasion. So let's get that there. All right, what I want to do then is I actually want to create another copy. Every day is a learning day. Another copy of this, okay, but I want to do it perpendicularly to this one. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down the Option key because I want to make a copy, and if you can see that, you can see that the cursor has changed to the copy cursor. I then need to also hold down the 5 key on my keyboard. Okay, it's a bit of a piano stretch, this one. And then I'm just going to pull this out to where I want it to be, kind of depth-wise, really. There we go. Okay, so now I've got those two things together. I'm going to change the color of the one in the back so you can see it more clearly. Okay, let's go for a bright magenta. That nearly always works there. And so now I've got those two things, and that one is backing away from that. Hopefully you can see that. There we go. All right, I now no longer need the perspective grid. So what I'm going to do now is Shift Command I, Shift Control I, as I mentioned earlier, to do that. And then I'm just going to go ahead and draw some elements in. So I'm going to switch to the line tool here, and I'm just going to go between these points. I'm going to do that nice and carefully. I made sure that snapping is on, so I can snap between points. That one definitely didn't go, and also it's got no appearance. I want it to be nice and thin. There we go. And then I'll go to the next point here and across. I'm just going to work my way around some of these different places. So point to point. Some of them you have to kind of visualize where you think it's going to be, where you think it's going to work best. If I go right the way across to there or there, it's tricky to know which one to go to sometimes. Let's come down to this one here. These ones are easy. And then just down to the bottom here and across like so. You see, that one's not truly connected on that side. I'm just going to bring that one back down. Okay, and then get my line tool again, go here. Now the bits that are going to be problematic, as you've probably guessed, okay, are the curves. Now you can work your way around these. You can try and find the best place to switch between those two and try and make them work that way. To be honest, this is another one where I get something back for the plugins, because Astute Graphics have a thing called the tangent line tool, and if I go to this surface here and go across, or this point here, I can actually join between those two paths. You can see that I could join the bottom just there. I'm just going to undo that and back off a little bit and go from the top of that one to this one. It's really annoying when it won't snap to the bit you actually want it. There we go. No, still not right. There we are. That's it. Got it just there, and I know that they are on that tangency. Let's come down to the bottom here and go across from here to here. There we go. Excellent. I've now got all of the bits that I need there to be able to construct the rest of this. I am reasonably certain. Okay, that does look pretty good. So I'm going to select all of that stuff, and then Option Command X, that would be Alt Control X on Windows, turn that into a live paint group. I found that this is the best way to actually approach this bit. And then K for the live paint bucket. Let's get my swatches open, because I like doing these things in different colors, because that way I know where I'm working. If you watch the Celtic, the most recent Celtic motif a few weeks back, then you would have seen me do this with a dragon, a live paint dragon. See, and here's the benefit of doing it, because that hasn't quite coloured up where I want it to go. There we go. That's there. And I also need to come down to that point there. So I'm just having a look at that. I don't want to lose that edge, so I'm staying away from that. Let's go and choose a different colour down here. There we go, something like that. And we'll drop this one down here in another colour. All the colours will change in a moment, or a moment or 10. Ooh, I need to make that a very, very different colour so we can see it. Just making sure that's gone across to there. It hadn't. There we go. So just checking around now just to see if there's anything I've missed. Up here I think, oh, half I've missed the top, and I need to make sure that I snag that little purple bit just there, magenta bit rather. At this point, I can actually tap X on my keyboard, all right, to go to the strokes here. Okay, so now I'm targeting the strokes, and I'm just going to hit the slash key, okay, to give them an appearance of none. And that should have hidden all of the strokes. That's interesting. There we go. Now it has. I must have just missed something somewhere. So now I've got rid of all of those strokes. This is looking pretty reasonable the way it is. So now I've got that, I can go ahead and expand the live paint object, and then I'm going to use the merge pathfinder. Okay, so that will join together all the things of a common color, creates me a group from the end there, so I can just ungroup that. And I think I'll need to do it a couple of times in reality to get to all of the individual elements. So that's working pretty well just there, and that looks okay. There's a couple of bits that really do need to change here. I'm not happy with the way that's joining, so I'm going to target this piece here. I'm going to get my selection tool, or my direct selection tool, and bring that one across. And this one here, I'm going to use the pen tool. If I can just get that selected. I just want to remove that point just there. So if I bring that down, oops, I've got all of the points targeted there. Bring that one down out of the way, pen tool, and then I can just subtract that. I could also subtract this one because it's doing no good work for me just there. And there we are, we've got that part. So now I've built those bits, I'm just going to quickly save this onto my desktop. There we go. Which, of course, normally at Christmas I clean down my desktop. I've got to do that this week. But anyway, so right, now that we've got those things, let's build out a couple of gradients. So to do that, what I'm going to do is get myself a nice long rectangle like so. I think I'm going to just hit the period key on my keyboard. Oh, I've got the look at that, I've got the stroke in front, so I just need to undo that. X to bring the fill to the front, just there, and then the period key to get a gradient. And let's build out a nice gradient here. I'm just going to use the default swatches for this. Also going to change the angle to 90 degrees so we can see, or even minus 90, so it's coming down from the top. There we go. And then on this very end here, I'm going to make that orangey, maybe a bit more orange than that. There we are. And then bring in some colors in between. So a nice magenta in there. In fact, that's not bad the way it is, you know, just there. I wonder if a blue would help in there. Yeah, that's going to create an interesting look, I think. I might just also bring in this one here and also bring this one in as well. There we go. So they're nice and solid in that mix. And I can always change the midpoint blends if they're too rich or not rich enough. There we are. That's good. I'm going to save that gradient. So I'm just going to go ahead and click the save gradient here. I didn't name it just there. If I wanted to, I could go ahead and do that by going to the swatches and then targeting that swatch and swatch options, and let's call it, it does look very 80s, so we'll call it 80s grad. There we go. Something like that is good for now. So we'll get started with this one. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to just pick up all of these bits just here. The bits that are on the underside I'm not going to worry too much about just for the moment. These bits here, and apply that gradient to them. That's pretty good the way that is. Then I'm just going to work my way around. So I'm going to tap G for the gradient tool, hold down Command. You do that Control on Windows, of course, if you're doing that. And then I'm going to go ahead and just color these up. So some of them I might want to color up this direction, like so. I'm trying to go with the line of the shape itself, which helps to develop the form of it. Command key down just to go to the next piece. This one's going to need some shadow in there, so let's go ahead and bring that in like so. That's pretty good. Just there. Go to the next one here. And the advantage of doing this way, I can start the gradient well and truly outside that if I want to, or make any other changes on the thing itself. So if I needed to go ahead and model that further, I could do that. We'll start further down. There we go, something in that sort of region. Now, I'm not being too physical about it. You know, we know some of these things would be, some of these things wouldn't be highlighted in that way. Caroline is asking, are you pressing down a key to angle it? No, but you can hold down the shift key if you want to constrain it, depending on how you set your constraints up in your preferences. So you can do that if you want to. Okay, but don't have to. So that would keep you to 45 degrees. You can see that that's now working around 45 degrees there, like so. So I'm basically just eyeballing this. That one would kind of be fairly vertical, I think. Just there is going to work best. It's not 100% vertical, but it's close enough. And this one's going to be another one that goes up the other way, I think. I might even compress that, make it really, really tight. There we go. Something like that. Leaning that in just a bit there. That's looking pretty good. I also, what I'm going to do now is make this all a bit larger. Got my little bit off to the side there. So I'm just going to go ahead and scale that up a bit. Yeah, that's looking pretty decent, I think. And I'm going to need another gradient for these pieces on the underside, and also for the edge there. So I want sort of a bright metallic effect there. Okay, so that's working out all right just there. I'm going to make another gradient for this side. So I'm going to get to the gradient tool here, or the gradient panel. I'm going to hit the period key to create a gradient here, and I'm just going to take this right back to the black to white gradient to start with. And I'm just going to go ahead and make some color. So I'm just going to go with, that kind of electric cyan just there. Then I'm going to go ahead and mix this. I'm going to use HSB. It's my preferred color model for doing these kind of things, and I want to create something that's just a little bit different for that edge there. I kind of know what I'm looking for here, so I'm just going to work my way around with that one. I want there to be a bit of a highlight in it, but I don't want it to be a dead white highlight like that. So first of all, I'm going to hold down the Option key and drag this across like so. So I've got a copy of that, and then I'm actually going to hold down the Option key and drag another one in, get rid of the white one, and then here I can go ahead and change that in relation to the others. So it just needs to be subtle, I think, for that to work well. And let's get that so the midpoint blend is out. That might get adjusted in just a little while, but for the moment that's working pretty well. So another quick update save there. Okay, let's work with this piece here. So another gradient again. So I'm just going to hit the period key for that. It's just so quick to do that. It's going to be a linear gradient. I only want 2 stops in it, so I'm basically going to start off with something dark. I think I'm going to keep with the purples and whatever, but just take this out to maybe a just slightly lighter, like a blue there. So you've got a bit of darkness in there. I'm going to switch to my gradient tool and then just draw that along like so, and just, you can see that what I'm aiming for there is that acting like a bit of a catchlight. Oh, there's a gap. Let's find out what's causing that gap. There's a control handle just there, I think. It is a handle, or is it a point? It's a point. So I'm just going to get the pen tool and just subtract that. There we go, that joins together nicely. Yeah, so it's acting as if some of that light would bounce back up into that corner. This is the darkest point just there. And there's nothing to stop me adding another gradient on top of that. If I really did want to model it, I could go ahead. In fact, let's do that just so you can see it, because we've got plenty of time just here, I think, today. So what I want to do is kind of add some more dimension to that underside there. So I'm going to go to my appearance panel so you can see it. Here's its current fill. Now we've got these things at the bottom which will allow us to add a new stroke and a new fill. Try and learn the keyboard shortcuts for that. To add a new fill is Command/, that's Control/ on Windows. So we've now got a brand new fill on top of that. So two fills going on here. I'm going to choose the black to white gradient there. Okay, so this is going to start to mix in a bit now. So I'm going to work with this gradient. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make it black on both ends. I'm going to take the opacity down to 0 on one of those ends. Just make absolutely sure that is black on that end. It is. I can then get my gradient tool and kind of blend that across. So if I wanted to, for example, go in a bit like this, or just make that slightly more subtle than it currently is. There we go, something like that. You can see that now that's suddenly got a lot of depth in there. And I could also go ahead, if I wanted to do more to that, I could change the blending mode to multiply there. That would enrich that a little bit. I could even then just soften it off just by dropping that down and dialing it in until I'm happy with that. So you can see you've got lots and lots of different options for working with that and really adding nice appearances to it. Now where else have I got those things? I've got this bit just here. It's tricky to select because I've made this one really thin. The one I showed you earlier, quite thick. This one very thin, because I wanted it to be thin, but I wanted something that I could show you to start off with. So I'm going to pick up that bit there. That one's going to need a highlight, so I'll just basically get the eyedropper tool, and click that. And now you can see we've got that in there. And of course, if I needed to change anything there, like the direction of that shadow or any of those things, it's all editable. So if I just go ahead and pick that one, you can see both fills are here. Turn that on and off. So maybe I don't want that to be quite so dark at the top there. So I could go ahead and get my gradient tool and then just bring that away if I wanted to. So just change that so it is right on the very end. Okay, so you've got all of that stuff to change. I'm still not entirely convinced about the thing on the side, but we can come back to that in a moment. Once we've got a colour there around it that's kind of showing that off, then we could work with it. Do you know what? I am going to go ahead and sample this one for a minute, because then we can go ahead and make some changes just here. First of all, we could go ahead and lighten these colors. Went to edit and edit colors. You've got a few different options here for how you can change them. Plug-in land, I'd go down to Phantasm for that from Astute Graphics, and that would make that really easy, but we're not going to do all of their stuff in it. So let's go ahead and go back to edit and edit colors, and I'll choose saturate here, because you can actually turn down the intensity of that and turn preview on. You'll see that so much more. So you can see I'm dropping that down nicely. That gives a nice contrast the edge for this one. Also gives me a couple of colors that I might want to pick out for that. That's working pretty well. The gradient on top, this one here, which is currently set to multiply, I'm going to set that to screen. Now black is invisible in the screen blend mode. So what I'm going to do is go back to the gradient here, and then just going to change these to white in both cases. So it's going to be white to white, and now you can see how that's softening off on the top there. Let's go back to the gradient tool here and bring that right the way in. And so now I've added sort of a bit of a highlight towards that edge. There we go, it's working out all right, I think. Okay. So now to get an idea of how well that blue is going to work on the edge there, I'm going to introduce a new layer, but I want it behind the other one. So Shift D, which takes me into draw behind mode. Okay, and then I'm going to hit the plus for a new layer. You can see it's added beneath the other one. Then Shift D to go back into draw normal. Okay, so we've got those things together. I want to just lock that layer, make the layer underneath active. And so for this one, I'm going to get, I'm going to go for the whole artboard. Just say, oh, that looks kind of interesting, doesn't it? It's kind of nice, not a bad effect that on its own. I'm going to go to offset path, so path, offset path, again, something else that I've added my own shortcut for. I'm just going to bring this down until it's about the size I want. Something like that, I think, is where I went in my original. I'm going to go in just a bit further. That's great. And I know it's got the same proportions to the outside rectangle. That's cool. Back to the gradients then. So for this one, oh, and I need this just to be just the one thing, so I'm going to actually get rid of that extra fill just there. Then back to the gradient. Yeah, you can see how they've changed Sandrine just there, or hopefully you can see that. Then that's much more muted on that side, and this side is also more desaturated as well as against the original one. In fact, the way I could make that even easier for you to see is if I went ahead and targeted, let me just unlock my layer here. I'm going to target the one that I didn't desaturate just there. Good, I'm glad you can see that. That's excellent. Right, I'm going to go to this and I'm actually going to save that gradient. Just here, oh, I've gone for the one underneath. So I've just saved myself a transparent gradient, which is fine. Let's go ahead and do that. So if I just create a new gradient just there, so we've got that one, and if I come down and pick up this one and make sure that I've got the, haven't got the topmost thing selected there, you can probably see that already. But if I go ahead and create that, then you will see the difference between the two just there. So that's what happens doing it that way. You actually are editing the colors as the, I guess the name would suggest. Right, this one then. So this is going to be kind of purple on here. That's the way I want it for now. So again, I'm just going to pick from the default colors here, from the default RGB set that I've been using there. That works nicely. I'm going to make this radial. Okay, then let me just reposition everything. In fact, if I go for all the stuff on this layer, oops, not that stuff. I need to just get rid of that thing just there. There we go. And group that. So I've got all of that in one group. I can then go ahead and position this, which is something I guess I should have done a little while ago. So let's bring that down. I want to kind of mirror that gap there. That's good. And then I'm going to use the center single object thing there. That's good. That's working pretty well. Right, now I can go ahead and work on the background. So I want to go and get the gradient tool here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this tool like the graphic it's got there, and then just bring that in. So I just want that to be in the middle, like so. I'm going to make that a bit bigger. I've decided I will darken this one, so I'm just going to go ahead and switch that and just bring that in. It's nice and contrasty just there, very different to the one I showed at the outset, and we'll see how that works in a minute. Okay, but what happened there? That's weird. Let's just undo that a second, find out. There we go. Oh, I know what I did. Right, so we've got those things working pretty well in there. Now I'm going to need to be able to sample some of these colors in a minute. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to option drag a copy of that over like so. I'm then going to rasterize it. So object, rasterize. Okay, so that's all fine. Everything there is fine. It's RGB. it doesn't, the resolution of that doesn't really matter critically at this point, although I'll have more to choose from my result. So let's go ahead then and get another type object. So I'm just going to click here, it's still using Lato, so I'm just going to do 2,0 like so. Let's make that a bit larger like that. Now we're just going to go ahead and I'm just going to move this off to the side just a second. So I've got that together. Now I'm going to make this bolder than it currently is. So I'm just basically going to work my way through. That's going to work pretty well, I think. I'm going to go with light, like so. I'm also going to spread that out a little bit, just change the tracking between those two. That's fine. This can be outlined at this point. There's nothing that's going to change just there. I'm going to go ahead and center this on the artboard like so. Then Option and Shift down. I just want to give enough of a clue to what that is. So there's going to be some poking out of the side. Bring that down. Cool. That's pretty good. Now if I wanted to actually pick colours from the art, on the gradient it would actually apply the gradient, but here I can now get the eyedropper tool. Because this is an image, I can hold down Shift and then pull colours from the image like so. So if I wanted something that was very, very soft in there, so towards the darker side of that, see, that's going to work quite well, I think. I don't need that image anymore technically. I think I might go just a bit lighter. So back with the eyedropper in here, somewhere around about there is good. That's going to work, I think. And I'm going to just change the blending mode of that. I might try with lighten and bring that down just a shade in there. Let's go ahead so we can see the whole thing. Oh, I'm sorry if you're watching this on a phone. Anyway, I've got those things there. However, I don't want that there, so I'm going to cut that. I'm then going to select this rectangle, and then I'm going to use Draw Inside mode. So Shift D twice, because I've got a selected object. This is where I'm toggling these things from, down at the bottom here. So Draw Normal, as Illustrator behaves normally. Draw Behind, you've seen me use that before probably, and Draw Inside. And you can tell when Draw Inside is active because you get these dotted lines around the edges. I'm then going to paste, just Command V or Control V just there. I can move that around, and it's essentially created a clipping mask here of those things. And then I can pull that around to where I want that to be. And once I'm happy, just double click anywhere in the void area. It's gone back to Draw Normal just there. I think that's working nicely. I kind of like that gradient around the side now. I don't think I'm going to do much to change that, if anything at all. I think that works well. I can get rid of that image, don't need it. Yeah, that's going to be pretty good. Then we can go ahead and add another type object. Let me just see if there's anything I'm missing off of there. Now I think that's, you can see the variations in the colour just there. We're going to do the text in just a moment. Kind of like this one, it's more subtle and thinner, which is good. You're having the remote replaced with fire. The remote is very full at the moment, Oliver, with all the rain. It really is. So we've got those things together. I think that's working. Something else you could do if you wanted to add a little bit of sparkle to it, by the way. I'm going to go ahead and put some text around the side in a moment. But you could, if I just tap L on my keyboard here, okay, and draw out a shape like so, and give that a gradient fill. Let me just change this one to white also, and again opacity down to 0 just for that one, so it goes, that's not looking very very transparent just there. No, it's not. There you go. Right, so now I've got that, make it radial. So there's nothing to stop you from just adding, and I'll change the opacity actually at both ends of this one. I'll bring that one down a bit like so, something like that. And you could drop some of these down, change the shape a little bit, which will roll those around, and you can add yourself a little bit of a highlight if you wanted to in places. You need to model that gradient a bit more than that, but just to show you that you can do something like that if you want. Let's go ahead and create some point text objects then. So happy, just holding down the shift key there. I'm just going to try and get the size right first of all. Now this is so that you can see here, this is point text. There's the point just there. The text and the actual lettering itself, that's got to be kind of pulled into line almost by eyeballing it to there, because they're not going to match together. And just for more fun, I'm going to do it in 3 different places. So I'm going to roll this one around like so. So let's get that round to the side here, and we can fix all of these in a moment. This one here, bring this across. Good, good, good. Happy, happy, happy. Anyway, right. So this one here is going to be using Lato Light. And in fact, I might even go up. I might even up my game a little bit and go to medium just there. No, I'm going to stick with light just for a moment. Now I'm going to eyeball that in. If it was outlined, in fact, there's nothing to stop me doing that if I wanted to, but I don't know if that's the way it's going to stay. So this one here is going to say new, and this one is going to be a bit heavier than that, so I'm going to go up to bold with that one. I think that one needs to come up a bit in weight. That's going to need to be regular or medium, and this one here is going to say year, and this one I'm going to go full on all the way up the weight. It's past heavy to black just there, so I've got that increasing weight as it goes around. So let's try and get these in place. So just something like that. I think I am going to outline that, you know, because it just needs it. Although, actually, if I do that, I'll be robbing myself of something in a minute. So no, I'm going to stick with it like that. So there we are. Of course, normally I'd spend some time getting these things lined up perfectly. There we go. So do that. The Y here is going to be the thing that, the top of the Y is going to be the thing that needs the alignment there, or else it would just look off. That's cool. Right, so let's have a look at that. So we've got the Happy New Year around there, like so, the increasing weights as it goes around. So I'm going to select all 3 of those, and then I'm going to group them. This lot here are groups. They are actual type objects. Now the thing is with type objects is they have fill across the characters. And I can remove that fill by just hitting the slash key. So now all of the characters are there. If we go into outline mode, you can see they're all still there, but at the moment they have no fill. Now I've had someone tell me before on YouTube, said to me, you don't need to remove that fill. It's quite right, actually. You don't need to, but it's a good idea to, because sometimes some of the underlying fill from the characters peeps through and you get sort of a dark line where you don't want a dark line. So what I do want to do here is add a new fill, which now works at the group level. Right, so if we go to the appearance panel, you can actually see it's the group that's got the fill on it, not the contents or the characters, which is where the fill existed before. So I can go ahead now and just choose how I'm going to do this. So I'm going to maybe add a gradient into it, so I could go ahead and add one of those that I've already got there, or of course mix another one. So if I just hit the period key, turn that into a gradient, let's choose one of these as a starting point. There we go, and we'll make it radial like that, and then we'll just choose up some colors. I'm just going to make this a bit darker to those edges, and then just change the color on this end. Let's go for something in that range. That's very interesting that that does not appear to be applying that gradient across those characters, and it should. Let's take a look at that in a moment. Let's get that blend going. Ah, it's because it's radial. There we go. If I do that and change that to linear, let's try and just mess that up a bit. And I should be able to actually go ahead and use, you see that? You can change that and mess around with it and draw it over the top. Anyway, it's not as successful as it should be. Just there, I'm going to have a quick look at the appearance panel. Interesting. It's not showing me the change in the gradient at all. Oh, it's because I didn't make it stick. That's why. Oh, we're having super fun times with Google Chrome. I'm going to switch to the gradient tool, and I'm going to try and apply that color from here. That's why that's not working. There we go. So Illustrator's had a bit of a disagreement with Chrome again. See that it doesn't matter what I do here, it won't change. I need to actually use the gradient tool to do it. But there we go. So I could go ahead now and draw that gradient across, and you can see how it's changing as it goes across. You can make that nice and as interesting as you like. Just say, in fact, you've got all of those things going on at once in that place. Great stuff. So Happy New Year is in there. I was wondering if we've got time to. We have got time to do a firework, I think. Shall we try for a firework? I'm not going to guarantee the success of the firework. I can do them, but I just sometimes need to think about it. But let's do it anyway. So I'm going to start out with just a line here, like so. If I bring it onto the artboard, you better see it just there. There we go. And let's just make this black to start off with, and nice and chunky like that. I'm then going to get the width tool, so Shift W for the width tool. I'm going to bring that in at the bottom like so. I'm going to bring it out a bit towards the top here, then making my way up to the top and bringing that in like so. It's a kind of nice interesting shape. I'm going to move that around a bit and just bring that in just a bit more. Ooh, modeling. That's a much better shape. There we go. Then tapping X to bring my gradient to the front. Okay. We're trying for the firework. I made a great optical illusion firework in 2012. It was when gradient strokes first appeared in Illustrator at Tower Bridge, which was cool. So I'm going to try and replicate some of that. So I'm going to go ahead and switch to a gradient for this. So I'm just going to hit the period key, making sure, of course, that the stroke is in the foreground here. And for this, I'm just going to use two colors. I think something like that. So trying to visualize now and I want this, trying to visualize how this is going to emanate from the bottom. I also want it to run across the stroke, so from side to side, but I want to make it radial, which means it will reflect like so. So that's kind of interesting, right? Let's try and change the opacity from that. Yeah, that'll kind of work. I think I'm just going to back that off just a little bit. I'm going to create another stop there, and then Option drag another one across. Although if you're using exactly the same color, let me just show you that. If you're using the same color, you can just click, because if it's an end stop, it'll just copy it. There we go. So let's change that to 0%. That's not changed, does it? Oh, so annoying. I'll try and do it when it's sat in this position. There we go. Illustrator team, guys, you need to work on this. Happy New Year, and you need to work on getting that fixed. So that's interesting. Not entirely certain about the color there, but it looks like I'm going to have to stick with it because, well, you know. Or I could do what Sandrine says, but the only thing is that will disappear. Anyway, that's fine as it is, I think. Now I could add to that. There's a couple of different things I could do to add to that, but I think that's going to be just fine the way it is. So let's go ahead and make that a lot thinner because it's too big. There we go. Something like that. Just wondering whether I should blend it still further. This is what happens when you're doing stuff dynamically. Let me just cut that for a minute because it's going to confuse me with these bits here. So let's just add in a layer in between. Paste that down. Yeah, it's going to work. Might need to change the opacity to screen, I think. Oh, there's a lot of dark colours in it. Oh, that's going to work though. That would be good. Okay. So I've got that. If we wanted to, we could go ahead and add one more gradient to the top of it. So I'm going to go for my appearance panel. This time, Option command, that would be Alt Control / adds you a new stroke on top of it. Now you can see that that's changed dramatically because of the way that that's being drawn at the current time. Yeah. So it's not taking on the same behavior as the other one. Yeah. So it's not using the same profile. I've now just added a different profile into that, or I could go ahead and add something like that and make that slightly narrower. The other one, can you see? So there's plenty of options in there. I could even go ahead and mess that Shift W. Let's do that. Let's go ahead and mess with that one. So that creates even more of a flare. But I'm going to take the opacity for this stroke down. There we go. So we've got this nice sort of edge glow thing going on there. You can see you could go nuts with this if you had all day. Spend loads of time dealing with it. Right, so I think I'm going to start out with a smaller stroke like that. Oops, didn't mean to take that off of the vertical, just holding down Shift. It's kind of important there. That will be good. Right, then I just need one other thing here. So I'm going to get the pen tool. I'm using my smart guides here. I'm just going to move down like so and simply click once. That's it. Done. Right, I've got that that single point there. I'm going to hit escape. That has no visible dimensions of its own. Still selected. I'm going to select both things just there and then group those. Then let's go ahead and go to Distort and Transform. Transform. So we'll leave the scale for this one. Actually, we could scale this one down just a bit. Let's do that. Let's bring this one down. And we'll do it from the bottom center. There, like so. So that will change where that effect is coming from. Then we will have... let's have 8 copies. Okay, see, that's an interesting effect in itself. Let's do 360 divided by 8. So 360 divided by 8. There, like so, 45. It's going to change the scale for each of those. So we'll reset the scale to 100%. I could apply a different transform for that if I wanted to. So I could apply a transformation on the side there and scale that one down. So let's do that. We'll add a second transform. I'll apply that new effect. Let's bring the scale of that one down. So we'll go with 60% just there. Cool. Then we're going to add another transform effect. I'm just going to DSA that. That's don't show again. 22.5, I think. Something like that. And let's make another copy of that. Oh, I went to 10, not just 1. So I needed to have 1 copy, not 61. Good lord. from that bottom center again. Ooh, gonna go crazy just there. Now the scaling is not going to help. I think that will have to go from the center. Oops. Oh, that was me, my bad. Let's try that again. Just one. That's cool. Then we'll scale this one up. And you could do that one more time. So another transform effect. Again, whether we rotate it or not is neither here nor there really. Let's do, here's a trick for you. 22.5 divided by 2 which will give us what we need from there. Actually it doesn't quite look right to me, so we'll just bring it around so it's in line with the other. Gone too far. And then we'll scale that one up. Once you've got all of that and having it at just that angle, you then need to group that, by the way, separately, so it becomes a whole nother object. So then when you should be able to rotate it, ooh, in fact that's even nicer. Look at that. Wow, that's kind of, I'm going to leave that like that. It's kind of cool. But you could bring those around, rotate the thing however you want with another effect there. But once you've got it, what you could then do is you could go ahead and try messing around with making a mask for it. So you could then use something like an ellipse from that anchor marker just there. Now I'm just going to fill this. Let me just get rid of the stroke and give this a gradient fill. It's still working on top of the mask. Interesting effect, mind. I haven't correctly created my group level. That's kind of interesting that that's working with that. Let me just cut that a minute and go back to this one. I'm just going to get rid of the mask. That's interesting. Anyway, there you go. You can play with it. You can mask it. There we go. But you can get that if you do get it to the right level. At the moment it says it's a group from there, which means I should be able to work with it separately with the opacity. But you could go ahead and change some of those things. Then of course if you wanted another one over here and just change something like the size or the rotation of it, and you'll end up with all of these things. You can change the color. This is where you could use recolor artwork to make modifications. So you could basically go with that and say, right, I want this one to be yellow and red. Unlink them if you want to change the colors independently of one another. Or even go make that hot. Right, so there we go. So you do a whole bunch of things with that. But anyway, that's extra homework time for that. Didn't plan for the fireworks, but that's our start to the new year. We've got it. Happy New Year 2023. Let's go into big mode with it so you can see it in big. So Shift F to do that. I'll pop this one on Instagram so you can see it. I might make a couple of modifications just so the text there, choose some different colors for each one of those. Right, thanks everyone